with his dissertation, Chase studies elections and studying gender, studying social interaction, symbolic interaction. This is basically the brainchild of what came out of those conversations we had. So we know that there are barriers to recruitment, barriers to election among women. And by the way, we also have a full manuscript already, so I am going to move pretty quickly on your, be happy to share it with you. 2016, Hillary Clinton was the first candidate to win the nomination for a major party. Of course, we've had other women. And as a social psychologist, I'm examining these debates, which I'm excited to see Celeste with the coding of the debates and the kind of discourses around gender. I just kept hearing these kind of code words that I was just thinking about: EPA, she's a bad person, she doesn't understand them. So my co-author was nice enough to include a few EPA ratings in his dissertation, which was collected in October, just a month before the actual election. So again, being brief here, essentially what we're interested in is how we understand voting inclinations for Clinton by understanding general cultural sentiments about gender, so about men and about women, and about presidents. So obviously we can link this to a lot of ideas about gender, leadership, things we've talked about today, but here we're talking about the specific election. And we also take a bit step back and a more structural approach, suggesting that if you live in a time or place where there are more women in politics, senators, governors, Congress, local and state levels, state and federal levels, a woman president to you is less deflecting. So it's easier. I love the language that Lynn used, the sense of unreality, thinking of deflection in those terms. So, of course, some people are angered by a woman president, but we're really not talking about evoking emotions here. But can you imagine a woman as president? How distorted are these concepts? So we expect to find a mediating relationship. The story, we were expecting to really be a fully gender story, but a lot of this came down to differences in political parties. So the data were collected using Amazon's Mechanical Turk. The sample, slightly more white, liberal educated, for those of you who have used these kind of samples, that's true, sound familiar. What's nice about it and what piqued my interest really was that it's nationally, close to nationally representative. So we can really look at those state level variations or state level variables and how they are related to cultural sentiments and voting inclinations. So they were asked to place the terms woman, president, woman, and man on the EPA ratings separately, of course. And then we calculated, and it's really distance. I hate that I used the word deflection, but it's really the distance, Euclidean distance between woman and president in EPA space. That's our mechanism here that we're using to explain. So that is the EPA of the distance between president and woman. We use Institute for Women's Policy Research, Women in Politics ranking, which they calculate. And then we also use some concepts from the Georgia Dictionary, which I'll get to briefly. I already talked a little bit about our sample, but we do see very clear patterns that we saw in the larger polling data. So whites less likely to vote for Clinton, college degree more likely to vote for Clinton, males less likely to vote for Clinton, etc. And this also, I already mentioned this, but it is a more liberal, more Democrat, more leaning towards Clinton sample than in the general population. I don't have time to really get into this, but again, I said there's some gender differences, and these are ANOVAs I'm controlling for political ideology, political party, gender, age, race, etc. And there were some gender party differences in ratings of woman and man, but they really weren't that strong or consistent. But what we did find, and this is what made it about political party for me, I was like, whoa, Democrats see a president, look at that difference in terms of EPA. And what that means, I'll get to right here, is this is only evaluation of potency. Unfortunately, I keep trying to figure out how to make good three-dimensional graphs. But ignore Trump and Clinton for now. This is the average EPA profile for Republican. This is the average EPA profile for president among Democrats. And we took turns from the Georgia dictionary that are rated most closely to those profiles to give us an idea of what do we expect, what does each party expect from a president, what's presidential for them. So we have things for among Democrats such as enthralled, aroused, industrious, persistent, sexy, masculine, enterprising, and Republicans, things like ostentatious, provocative, critical, relentless, strict, defiant, kind of this sense of authoritarianism, more negative on evaluation, and we'll come back to this at the very end. But this is, again, I'm just going to mostly show quick pictures here. Again, we expected a mediating relationship in which, and we didn't use HLM, which we can talk about later, of why we made that decision. Things really didn't cluster at the state or regional level. So we went with structural equation modeling. And what we found is, yes, if you live in a state where there's more women in politics, you are more like a woman president is less likely to you. It makes more sense. The ratings are closer together. If the rating for woman and president are closer together, you're more likely to say you're going to vote for Clinton. Keep in mind, and not even all the controls are up there. We're controlling this above and beyond all of our controls. And this relationship was mediated. Woman president deflection explained about 38% of the effect of having women in politics in your state and your inclination to vote for Clinton. We also control some other state level stuff. So we do have support for different hypotheses. These are our coefficients, which again, I'm happy to share the full paper with you. Sample isn't terribly representative, but again, we do see patterns of voting behaviors based on demographics. The effects are not very large, but in the situation, for those of you who didn't follow the election terribly closely, where Clinton did in fact win the popular vote by a few million, but she still didn't get the right votes and enough votes to take the presidency. So an election this close, which a lot of elections are close, I still think that we should consider these aspects of our cultural sentiments about gender and leaders in order to explain what might have kept a few people home, or what made people go for Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton in the primaries. Just these different, it's a different way of looking at gender bias as opposed to overt or even implicit gender bias. It's really about cultural sentiments. And is this generalizable to other candidates? It's not just a woman and a man that ran, it was Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton ran, who we are completely have been saturated with them, especially if you're keyed into politics and business and celebrity and all that stuff. It's not just a man or a woman. Forget about race and sexual orientation for now. I just mean that they are a celebrity. They're iconic. So the question is really, are people reacting to the persona of Hillary Clinton, or is it an amalgamation of, that is such a good word, I didn't really use it correctly, but, or the combination really of the different identities that Hillary Clinton holds. So is it Hillary Clinton unique or not? So lastly, I just want to show why this was especially problematic for Hillary Clinton in this election, because when you look at the words used to describe Trump and Clinton, remember we only have EPA ratings for man, woman, president. When you look at the words that we looked at, the Quinnipiac data, they asked people to use the first word to describe Clinton or Trump, and this is the word cloud for Trump.
That's Clinton.
Oh, sorry.
Woman.
See, I'm doing something with criminology today. They both got called criminals. So yeah, so this was Hillary Clinton. There was more variation in the words used for Hillary Clinton, but very negative. Trump also, but still some very quite negative terms. So when we map this onto what I showed you earlier, that really didn't hurt Trump. So I averaged, and again, this is kind of fun stuff that I didn't quite publish it this way, but I'm not going to, but where we averaged the most commonly used words for Trump and the EPA profiles of those words, and he is less than 1 point away from the average president EPA sentiment profile among Republicans. And then I'm sure when I'm saying those words, some people feel that way about Clinton, but she's extremely polarizing. They're both such negative disliked candidates, and she's all the way down here. So she's about 6 points away from what Democrats expect from a president. So not only were they both negatively evaluated, and this lines up with plenty of other data we have on perceptions and polling data, but it didn't hurt Trump as much as it hurt Clinton because of how the party that primarily voted for him perceives and expects. It's less deflecting, not only for a man to be president, but also for Trump himself and his persona. And yeah.